Hello, everyone. I'm Meteorologist Charlie Ironmonger. Thank you so much for joining me today for your 3 p.m. news and weather update from the First Alert Desk. Now, we've got a special treat today. We are going to be joined by a survival expert who, again, has roots in North Carolina to give a little bit of insight on the manhunt that is ongoing in Craven County. We are now, I believe, at day 8 for the search for Dominic Connelly. Residents, again, have been worried about this manhunt now for over a week. And again, we want to give people kind of a look at what may be going through Dominic's mind and maybe a strategy residents can use to help make it more difficult for Dominic over the next few days to help law enforcement out. So without further ado, going to introduce Kevin Estela, survival expert. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us with some of your expertise.
Thank you so much for having me, Charlie. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, first question, just right off the bat, Kevin, what strategies, if you were, to go out into the woods, do one of your survivalist expeditions, what kind of strategies are you going for and you preparing for ahead of time? How long would it take you to get enough stuff together to head out for like a week or so?
Certainly. So anytime that you are preparing for any type of extended trip into the great outdoors, you always have to consider the basic survival priorities. Now, traditionally, priorities are often taught with the rule of threes, where people will say like, hey, you can survive about 3 minutes without oxygenated blood going through your body, about 3 hours exposed to the elements, about 3 days without water, about 3 weeks without food. But many times we often overlook that one of the priorities that is so incredibly important is the priority of protection. Now, what's interesting with this case is that unlike most of the people that are watching this that are going into the woods for recreation, you have someone who is under a very, very intense level of stress because he does not want to be caught. So whereas I will already have all of my resources, in my garage or, in my office or staged in the back of my vehicle here, this is someone who had to think on the fly. And if anything, we know that this person is not sticking to a plan, and it seems like his murderous actions were actually not premeditated, but possibly done reactively to something where it doesn't show like he had a plan to get away, since he abandoned the car that he used after only 20 or 30 miles instead of using it for as far of that range as it would take him. So for the average person to get ready for a week, you're concerning yourself with some basic priorities, right? And this time of year in the Carolinas, you're dealing with temperatures that are not in the freezing zone at night. And during the daytime, they're very temperate, where you could easily sleep on the ground. And when you sleep on the ground in this, this temperature during the daytime, I mean, you've got the sun that's trying to keep you warm. He may or may not be lighting fires, but it's not as difficult. Unfortunately for law enforcement, it's not as difficult for him to live comfortably against the cold. Now, what is interesting is that this man is dealing with less daylight per day, which when you take someone like that who's highly, again, reactionary and thinking on the fly, and now you put a time constraint on them where you only have so much time to move throughout the day without having to use the flashlight at night, which would potentially give away his location. Now this person could make even more mistakes, but he's doing something right if he's been on day 8 now of evading the law.
Yeah, absolutely. Great information there. And again, you're 100% right. But we do, as a meteorologist, we are going to be getting cold Monday night into Tuesday morning. We're going to be down freezing across the east. So hopefully that can help flush him out and make it a little bit more uncomfortable for him. But next question, what strategies would you utilize if you were trying to stay hidden and survive in the forests of Craven County, the pine forests of eastern North Carolina?
Certainly. So when we look at how people are able to evade, and when we look at when we look at how people utilize camouflage, the jury is out all the different S's, right? We talk about shine, shade, symmetry, spacing, sudden movement. Typically, sudden movement is what will alert someone to the position of their prey if they're a hunter, or if you're a tracker going after a criminal, where the criminal may be, right? Sudden movement's usually the giveaway. But what gets you zoned into their location? Well, they're probably looking for tracks. So if this person ran off with a pair of shoes, I would be looking to get rid of the shoes that the trackers know that I'm wearing. We know just from the southern border that it's a common practice for people to put carpet on the bottom of their shoes in order to minimize their track. In fact, that's even been used here in the Carolinas for poachers. A lot of poachers will minimize their tracks by disguising their footprints to throw off people that might be pursuing them. Okay. So I would say one of the most important things, if I wanted to stay hidden, I would limit my movement during daytime, move during the twilight hours. Look at the animals that do it extremely, extremely well already in the great outdoors. We know if you're a hunter that deer tend to like the twilight hours, first thing in the morning and in the evening. And as humans, we don't have the luxury of being able to see very easily at night without an artificial light source. Now, another thing that a person could do to stay hidden is, instead of building a campfire, they could utilize some type of stove that uses alcohol, because it's a much cleaner, odorless burning stove or fire source, heat source, that will minimize their scent.
Yeah.
And scent is so incredibly important. Now, unfortunately, there are so many television shows and movies that portray tracking as very fast-paced, and we're going to throw the dogs after them and that type of thing. But the reality is, it's very scientific, and it does take time. Now, he is moving through locations where he's being caught on game cameras.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that gives you an idea of patterning. We know that he's moving northwest from where that crime was committed. So you have to almost interpret, where will he potentially be headed? What is the end goal of the movement? Is he planning to move indefinitely and stay on the run for the rest of his life? Is he moving to a known contact? Does he have connections to anyone in that northwestern direction? It all comes down to asking the right questions. And it's very important to approach it logically, as opposed to just putting a lot of energy and resources thrown in a general direction without any type of science that backs it up.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kevin, again, for that. That was, again, a great, well thought out answer. One of the last questions I have for you. What can residents do if they're watching from the Craven County area? What can they do, or even, southern Beaufort County area? What can they do to help law enforcement out and maybe make it more difficult for Dominic Connelly to survive through the weekend and then into next week, to hopefully get him to either surrender, or maybe just make a mistake and get caught on some more of those trail cams that have already picked up his movements?
Okay, so this is where it gets very interesting, because if he is low on supplies and he is utilizing some type of natural shelter, you have to look at what are the natural shelter items that he could be using. So he's most likely using pine straw if he is attempting to sleep on the land, as opposed to breaking into like an old cabin or into an old vehicle, that type of thing. Yeah. So if residents want to keep this person at bay, where that person's not going to come onto their property, they should schedule that pine straw to be removed. Right, have someone come by and pick it up. So there's no reason for him to move into that location. Now, in one of the correspondence we talked about the idea of turning off water, right? The idea of making sure that you have sensor lights. Another one would be, make sure that you have any supplies that are stored in an outbuilding, locked up, that could potentially give him an advantage, right? You don't want to give him a backpack, so now he has increased carrying capacity. You don't want to leave keys in an ATV or any type of mobility platform, since we know this idea of movement isn't stuck in stone to using foot traffic, a car. I mean, he's even used a bicycle at this point. So anything that could potentially help him move further and faster, you want to limit that access for him. And then on top of it, just stay vigilant. Talk with your neighbors. If you see something, say something. This is nothing new, and people shouldn't be too concerned, but they should stay vigilant, and they should not assume that what they're seeing is normal. If you see something, say something, report it, and also document when you saw something, so you can help the authorities and those people that are, focused in on that search. You can help them identify where and when someone was, so you can identify how fast they're moving and where they might be next.
Excellent. Kevin, that incredible information right there. Also want to kind of highlight what you kind of just mentioned that's also being mentioned by the sheriff's office. They are urging anyone who sees Connelly not to approach him and to call 911 immediately. So again, that kind of goes with what you're saying. Try to keep your stuff inside, stay huddled in, and just be aware of your surroundings. Kevin, thank you so much. You've provided us, again, some very good insight on what his mind frame might be and how, again, residents might be able to help law enforcement end this search earlier. But what if people, find what you were saying, again, very interesting and very captivating? What can they do if they want to maybe reach out to you for their own survivalist training?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm here to help people understand that you don't need to fear. If anything, I want to empower people with proper knowledge to keep them safe. So if anyone has any questions on anything that I've stated, or if you're looking for me to point you in the right direction, just visit my website, kevinestela.com. That's KEVINESTELA.com. I'm more than happy to answer your questions, and chances are I'll probably just reach out to you in a phone call to help you. It's so much easier to do it that way than an email. But I'm very, very open to answering questions and making sure that people live a fear-less life, where they're not fearing as much as maybe some other places would want them to.
Kevin, thank you so much. You've been an amazing resource for us. We sincerely appreciate your time. Hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your Friday. And again, hopefully the law enforcement officers who are searching for Dominic can wrap this up later on today or sometime soon, so residents don't have to worry as much. You have a great weekend, Kevin. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, and Godspeed to all of our men and women in blue.
Absolutely. Again, that was Kevin Estela, a survivalist expert and an instructor. So again, if you would like to learn more about Kevin's business, again, Kevin Estela, that's EEKEVINESTELA.com. And again, he can teach you again about more survivalist training. But that's all we have time for today's 3 p.m. news and weather update. We'll be back with more news and weather coming up at the top of the hour. Until then, have a fantastic Friday. We'll see you back here in just a little bit.